Hi guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about doing some more things with a straight loom. This is what I call a straight loom, or like a rake. You can use it to make a flat panel by using one side, or you can do a flat panel where you're using both sides at the same time. I'm going to use this as a rake today and use both pegs on each side to show you a couple different stitches. I'd first like to mention if my nail polish looks weird, it's actually not that weird. It's a light pink. My daughter, who's 7, decided she wanted to paint my nails, and after much talk on Facebook about it, I decided I wouldn't erase it, that I would just leave the nail polish on, and hopefully it's not distracting for the video. Now what we're going to talk about first, and I may have talked about this before, but I just wanted to kind of update this since I may have done it differently back then, is we're going to do a cast on for this row. We're not going to use all the pegs. I'm only going to do probably about half the loom just to be able to show you the stitch pattern. But first we need to do a cast on row. So you got to do your slip knot like you normally do, and go ahead and place it on the first peg you're going to use. Now what we're actually doing can actually be considered also like the first stitch, but what we want to do is we want to lay down a foundation row. This is going to be the row that when it comes through the other end, we're going to end up binding it off. Now the other thing to keep in mind, if you're using a nifty knitter, which this is, you may need to double up yarn up, which I have a gray and I have a black there. If you're using like the all-in-one loom, or a smaller loom, then you may be able to get away with one strand or a bulky yarn. You can also try using a bulkier yarn with this. So the first thing we want to do again is to lay down a foundation row. So this is going to be what I'm going to call the casting on of a rake. This is going to be this video, and then we'll do a continuation on it. Okay, so what we have, and the cast on really is pretty simple. You just want to lay down a foundation row, and I'm getting the ones out of my way. And again, I put it on my first peg, and you go over to the next, and you're just gently going like this. This is going to be your foundation row, and go over to where you want to stop. And we're going to stop right here, mainly because, like I said, I don't want to use all the pegs. You would keep going, and when you get to the part where you're done, just come back over this way and wrap the pegs you didn't. Again, this is going to help create a foundation row. And this is how you cast on a straight loom. Now, as you notice, you don't have double on there. You can go ahead and push them down. Now what some people do, because you want to lay your foundation row, is you can lay an opposite color of yarn down, because we're not really necessarily knitting these over right now. What you want to do now is you want to take a different color, which I have right here, and what you can do, you can lay down what they call a different color yarn. You could take a different one and you're just going to lay it in there so that when you're all done doing whatever stitch you're going to do, you'll know which other stitches you have to bind off. So you can kind of just lay this right across the middle of the yarn. Now what you would do is you would continue on and do whatever stitch you want to do. You would continue on doing the same. This is a basic stockinette, but there's a lot of other ones you can do. So you'd work your way over, and then you'd work your way back. Oops, and making sure if you're using 2 strands, that you get both of them together when you're wrapping the loom. And be careful how tight. If you pull it really tight, it's going to make it harder to knit over. So just make sure it just feels comfortable. Like, you don't want it to be too tight, you don't want it to be too loose. And you work your way back and forth. Now hold your yarn in place, and then take and go ahead, and let's zoom in here. And now we have 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. And again, we want to make sure both our bottom ones come over our top. What that does, you push this down, and again we have our anchor yarn, which I want to bring over on the side. So when we're getting ready to, you can either choose to bind off these beginning stitches while it's still on the loom, like once it comes down a little ways, or you can choose to do it when the full project is off the loom. But I'm going to show you what it's on, because I'm also going to be showing some other stitches, so I didn't want to have to cast this off right now. And I have shown you how to cast off a rake, and I will put a link to that video in here too as well. I may be updating that video. Okay, so we want to get these bound off. As you can see, this is our anchor yarn, the blue, to let us know which stitches we want to kind of bind off, and you want a crochet hook. What you want to do, excuse me, now normally you should be able to just use the loops that are on there to kind of help you, but what I want to do is I do have a little tail left over from here, so I'm going to start at the opposite end that I started with. So instead of starting where beginning row, I'm going to start at the end so that I can use this working yarn when I get to the end. So we're going to put a one on the loop, and then go and find the next and bring it through that one, making sure if you can, because if you're using 2 strands, you want to make sure you get both in there. And then take the back like that. Oops, I lost one of the... See, I don't know why it's fighting me so much. Okay, and then we need these 2, and then they need to go through those 2. Okay. Now find your next stitch, put it on there, take it through that loop as well. Find your next, take it through, find the next, take it through, the next. Now I kind of stretched these out a little bit just to show you more where they were. This is taking care of those live stitches that you had at the beginning. Now this one's going to be tricky because we got our working yarn. I believe we got one right here. And we got one more, it looks like over here. See what that's doing is it's binding off our project. And then what you can do, if you got your working tail, go right through and bring that beginning working tail right straight through and pull it down. So keep yourself a little working tail that you can use when you want to bind off. And again, you can give it a little stretch to kind of get it back out where you need to. If you decide you want more chains in between, you could actually use your own working yarn, get yourself new working yarn, and do almost like a crochet bind off using your crochet hook. But this just shows you how to bind off that, and if you want, you can just turn around and add an extra little knot in it and pull it closed, and then you can trim that. Where are my scissors? You can trim that if you want, and your stitches are now bound on there. And now you just take the blue yarn or whatever yarn you used as your anchor yarn and just pull it through the project, and now you're all bound off. And then you can just try to hide that in the project if you want. But that's how you kind of deal with your beginning stitches. So I hope this helped, and I hope to make more videos soon.